Jessica. I am a corporate recruiter. And today I want to talk about this story that I've been seeing. And actually, I've been thinking about this for a while, being in the human resources space. Um, this idea of paying people based on their skills and abilities and productivity versus what their location is. So this is something that has been trending on LinkedIn. It's been amongst conversations in the HR space for pretty much ever since 2020 began, honestly, just because, there's so many factors that go into pay and pay equity and things. So it's been really interesting to watch some of the conversations happen. I think there's a different of opinion when you look at the employer versus the employee. So, being in the HR space, but also being an employee and have been a job seeker and have helped other folks find jobs, I think it's really not a really straightforward conversation to have, but I think that if employers and employees can be pretty transparent with at the end of the day, really what they're looking for, there can be some medium here. So the question is, the employees are wanting to keep their big city salaries oftentimes. So what we've seen happen, and hello, Barry Johnson, welcome in. What we've seen happen is you see someone in New York moving to some place like a Denver, Colorado, and it has a lower cost of living, and they want to keep their existing salary. But the argument for the employer is, well, you're going to a location that is a lower cost of living. Let's pay you that, what's comparable there. So you're having this salary adjustment based on your geographic location. However, and I can understand that. However, I think the issue that comes to play is one, which is brought up by this article by the Wall Street Journal. What happens when the person has the same output, even though they've made this location shift, they're still being as productive or more productive after their move. So nothing has really changed outside of the location. So why would they take a pay cut? The other thing that comes up is this idea of pay equity. So, internal equity. Well, what happens when someone is paid a lot less than their other team members for the same job and they're having the same output or maybe better output than their other team members? What happens then? So it's more of this long-term situation as well. So let's say this person takes a pay cut, and they noted two people in this Wall Street Journal article. I'll bring it up in a second. But what happens when someone makes this shift a year later during their performance reviews, discussions, and you're looking at their past year and their performance has been great? Well, how do you say, well, we're not going to bring up your pay or we're not going to give an increase because of your location? And so it's this question of, does the location even matter anymore in a world where now everyone is just able to, not everyone, but in a lot of fields, your tech fields, right? Your HR fields, your sales, a lot of industries where due to the pandemic, employers just said, okay, hey, just, go home, let's see what happens. And now we're over a year later, and people are still working remotely, being productive. We've even seen studies where people are saying they're working more hours because of the remote work. They don't have to do the commute anymore, so they can spend more time working. And so it's really interesting to have this dynamic where employers are saying, well, we need to make this adjustment. However, the employers are making a really good argument saying, hey, I have kept up my productivity. I'm even saving the company money in this article. Let me bring it up. Hello, Universe Trip. Welcome. Hi, Victorious Shay, and hi, King Akil. Welcome in. And thank you, Universe Trip. Good topic. Good to hear. It's something that's really been promoted a lot on LinkedIn. So, what happens in this case? So I want to pull up the article though, just so everyone knows what I'm actually referring to. but it's an article that was written by someone at the Wall Street Journal. So let me bring it up just so you can see a reference point for a second here. And hopefully you can see it. So the title, if I can bring it up, hopefully you're not getting dizzy looking at this, but the title is Workers Want to Do Their Jobs from Anywhere and Keep Their Big City Salaries. Employers see remote work as an opportunity to save money by cutting pay. Employees argue that their work has the same value no matter where they do it. And I do tend to be on that end of, okay, what is the output? What is the end result? If the end result is the same, then how can we really keep this argument of, hey, we need to pay you less. We're sorry, but you're doing your job right, but we just need to pay you less because you've moved. So the other thing I want to bring up is what I was just about to get into. So there's someone in this article who makes the argument that, hey, they're saving the company money because they're not in the office anymore. They don't get some of the perks that they originally did. I believe this person was at Facebook. So they're not getting the free food anymore. They're not getting this free dry cleaning. That's specifically what this person said in the article. I'm pretty sure they were at Facebook. So there's a lot of different perks that you get as an employee where you receive a lot of perks just for being in the office. So we're not in the office anymore. I don't get these perks. I don't get the free food. I don't get the dry cleaning. I don't get the gym. I don't get all these things. So why am I being paid less? So you're saving money that way. The employer's argument, and I think is a tricky one. A lot of these employers, look, a lot of companies are stuck in these leases. So we're seeing a shift, like places like Reddit and Zillow groups saying, we are going to let you work wherever you want to work within reason, as long as we can operate there, right? And we're not going to change or cut your compensation. Those two companies have said that. I think for a lot of companies, what they're thinking about is they're paying for this office space. So they're already paying for the office space. So they're trying to also find ways to save money. So there's some companies are saving money by just simply cutting the pay and adjusting to the geographic location, which is fine for some employees. Some employers are like, you know what, I get it, I understand it. But at the end of the day, if you're thinking about pay as it relates to what value you're actually getting from someone, well, the location doesn't really matter. If you're a freelancer and you're doing work for someone in another state, are you going to adjust your rates just because they're in a lower cost of living state? Probably not, right? So it's an interesting discussion. I do lean more towards the idea that we should be building some structures that really do look at value, output, skills, and having those stated really clearly so that there's no sticky scenarios when an employee says, hey, I want to move locations. I think the other thing to keep in mind too is that not every single person is trying to move to a lower cost of living state. There are some people that are like, given they're probably earlier in their career, but I have talked to folks that want to make a big move to New York. I personally did this myself. In 2019, I was like, oh my gosh, I could move to New York after visiting there. It's like, this is a great opportunity. I may never have this opportunity again. I'm just going to do it. And I stayed with my existing company. They were really flexible. They did give me a slight adjustment based on that location. So I think that's another argument. What happens when someone is going from a low cost of living state or city to a higher cost of living location? And will a Zillow or Reddit, since they've said, we're not going to lower your pay if you move from a high cost of living to a lower cost of living state, but what happens for those folks that are actually wanting to move to another location? I think they're going to want the company to say, hey, we're going to make this location or geographic adjustment to your pay. In that situation, you would want that. So again, I think there needs to be really specific um, really just laid out terms of how employees are getting paid. And I do think it should relate more to the value you bring, because then location's completely taken out of the picture. So you're literally paid on your education, your skills, right? The KSAs. I talk about KSAs a lot: knowledge, skills, abilities, and of course your output. What is your productivity looking like? And you take that out of the conversation. Hello, One Titans. One Titans is saying you also get paid more when you are in a more expensive place. Exactly, exactly. So the question is, hey, will employees want to see it both ways, right? Because an employee could say, yeah, we're just gonna, pay everyone the same, like a Reddit or Zillow. It's kind of taking more of that approach. They're not really doing those geographic adjustments. And this is what I'm referencing for that is an article from Forbes. They put out an article in December 2020. And I referenced this, I remembered it because at the time, everyone was like, oh my gosh, what do we do about employee pay? Everyone's moving. Like, how do we make these adjustments? So there was an article. I'll bring this one up too. But companies are starting to pay people the same if they live in New York City, San Francisco, or Beaufort, Wyoming. I have never been to Beaufort, Wyoming, but if you live there at certain companies, I mean, you're going to be paid the same, no matter, no matter the cost of living, which I can imagine is a lot lower. So let's see if I can find this and bring it up for us. But it is an interesting conversation. And Victoriously Shay, I see your note. I'm gonna look at your comment too. So we're seeing this article by Forbes. Companies are starting to pay people the same. And specifically, I want to highlight, so they're saying the Wall Street Journal, so go back to Wall Street Journal, reported that Reddit Incorporated and Zillow Group, and Reddit is the social media platform, Zillow Group makes it easy way for us to find our homes, right? Are making a potentially expensive gamble on retaining talent and gaining a hiring edge. The move can entail maintaining relatively high salaries of employees who are relocating and adopting a revised scale for new hires. Though it is early, the move challenges a long held but not universal notion that where people live should determine what they make, and it seems like we're getting to the point where that's just going to be a little outdated for us. Basing pay based on where you live, it's starting to seem outdated in a world that is becoming more global as well. So what does this mean too for your global companies? I wonder what they do in other, when someone's moving to another country. Like it could really get bigger than this even, but for now we're just talking about states. So they're saying if this trend takes hold, it will be a boom for workers. The prospect of not needing to live within commuting distance of a job or applying for a role anywhere in the US could be a career game changer. And one thing that stands out to me too, and Reddit actually highlighted this, it can make it easier to find more diverse talent, right? In a Beaufort, Wyoming, I don't know how many ethnically diverse people live there. I don't know how many people, the queer population, live in Beaufort, Wyoming. I don't know that. However, in New York City, that's a place where there's a lot of diversity. In Chicago, there's a lot of diversity there. So I think it is really interesting. So Reddit, so what they're saying is, looking ahead, we want to meet the needs of our employees so they can do their best work, especially in a time of uncertainty. As we deliver on our mission of creating belonging for everyone in the world, we want Reddit to be positioned as a workforce that's as diverse as its ecosystem of communities and users. And I think that is an amazing point, because when you look at remote work, you have more of that possibility to reach more people. And it doesn't have to be just ethnic diversity. It could be all kinds of different backgrounds that you can reach, because some people are just like, I'm not moving to Beaufort, Wyoming. I'm not doing it. But I would love to work with the company, right? So you can bring in a lot of different talent that way. So they also said, well, they'll be supportive of the move. So if they choose the company, if they choose to relocate, the company will be supportive of the move and won't adjust their compensation down. Again, I have the question of what about people that are moving to a higher cost of living location? It may, I do have the question of folks that are living in New York and seeing people in another state making the same, knowing that they make the same as them. But I also feel like that gives more power to that employee to say, well, I really want to live in a certain location. I'm not constrained anymore. So if I really want to live in New York, I'm going to make the best pay, right? And if I really want to live here, I really want to live here. I'm not constrained to live in a Chicago or wherever else. So I thought that was interesting. Let me take this away and bring myself back up here. Let's see what Victorious Cliche had to say. So Victorious Cliche is saying, did you see those companies moving their headquarters out of Cali to Tennessee? Oh, I haven't. Which companies? I have seen a lot of companies moving. I think the biggest company that I heard of was, well, not the biggest, but Tesla, Oracle had moved their operations from California to Texas, to Austin, Texas. So it's interesting. Tennessee is a lower cost of living state. I could definitely see that moving from Cali to Tennessee. And also the environment for employers as well when they're thinking about taxes is another reason, and operations and what are the regulations and things. So I can see that. I can see that for sure. Which companies, Victorious Cliche? One Titan says, where I work, no matter where you live, the pay is equal. Is that what you're saying? Oh, it's exactly the same. So how do you feel about that, One Titans? Because I feel better about that because it sounds more like, okay, they're paying you based on the work that you're doing versus the location. It really doesn't quite make sense. I think it can be even a little easier that way too, because you're not consistently making these pay adjustments during a time where a lot of people are moving. It can make it a little easier. Oh, hi, Putt Putt King. How are you? Nice to see you here. Okay. Well, that's really the topic I wanted to bring up. I'll give it a few minutes just because I did ask some folks a few questions, but I'm really interested to see how this progresses, what other companies will do in response to, and more employees saying, hey, I want to move, but I want to keep the same pay because I'm going to be just as productive in what was one of the places. Someone moved from Seattle to Denver. I'm going to be just as productive. Or there's a person that was referenced in the article, their law firm, they went from New York to Ohio. They're going to be just as productive in Ohio, is what they're saying. So why make the adjustment? So it's a lot to break down, but I do think as a retention tool and during a time where it's harder to find job candidates, it may be easier for employees or folks that are job seekers and going into a new working in a new place could have a stronger argument because companies want to retain their talent and we also want to find good talent. So it can be a really good retention tool, as the folks at Reddit and Zillow have said. That's really a big reason why I think companies should look at making a different approach or taking a different approach to their pay structures. Are you doing well? Good to hear that, Putt Putt King. And hi, Pandy. Welcome in, Pandy. Well, we're going to close things down. Thank you so much for joining this discussion. I will continue following the remote work and continue to have these type of discussions. Also on Sundays, I typically do have job seeker questions, kind of Q&A style. I changed it up just because I haven't been on the YouTube channel in a while. I know this is streaming on multiple platforms today, but that will be the norm. We'll go back to the Sunday schedule of having more Q&A style job seeker questions and other topics. So thank you all for being here. Definitely appreciate it. And I hope to see you in the next video, the next discussion we have. I hope you all have a lovely Sunday afternoon. Bye.